have the answer to that question? Sure.
How to recognize who is in authority and who is not. Everyone follows someone's interpretation. Who's though? Are they qualified? What makes them so? And how do they judge?
You all, every single one of you, including those listening on the live stream, will be following someone's interpretation of Islam. All of you, even myself. The question is, whose interpretation are you following? Is that interpretation valid? That's my question. This Jibril Hadith, alright, which is now, if you haven't noticed, we're going to use this Hadith from a historical perspective to answer the two questions that I've just mentioned. Alright? And the recap.
Allah, in His wisdom, has accomplished His preservation in the Quran. By the traditional scholars, He has sent at each level of the religion. The level of Islam has been preserved and conveyed to us by the amount of Sharia, the sacred law, and its ancillary disciplines, madhabs, schools of law. The level of Iman, by the amount of Aqidah, the tenets of faith. The level of Ihsan, to worship Allah as though you see Him, by the amount of Tasbiyah.
I've made the color coding that way on purpose. Green, Islam, turquoise, Iman, and Ihsan is purple. Okay? That's the Jibril Hadith, the part that we're focusing on. That's kind of summarized. These slides will be uploaded today, inshallah. The first slide has been uploaded, and at the end I'm going to tell you how to, well, you'll be told how to access them at the end, including those who are listening on live stream. Okay, so that's familiar. We haven't done anything new today. That's all recap. I'm going to keep on bringing that up because it's important. Right? So Islam, 5 pillars, is fiqh, the madahib. Iman is aqidah. Ihsan is spirituality and tasbih. Alright? That's the Jibril Hadith in short form. Continue on last week. Right. We may pick up. This is not pick up, we can ask. What point stood out for you from last week's lecture? Don't say the break. Don't say the break. The break time.
Mainly the different school of thoughts, that for which we discussed the last week, but Hamdani, Malik, Shafi, and Hanfi, and how they all are following the same religion, minute difference in their interpretation of the religion, but the core remains the same, which you just mentioned are taken from the Veggie Hadith.
What's your name? Listen, what's the doubt for you? There's no right or wrong answer here. This is an easy one to answer. What's the doubt for us? Say that again?
For me, it was how hadith contradict each other.
Hey, look, seemingly contradict. Excellent. Why did that stand out for you?
Because I've seen people use hadith in the way that you described last section, where people give root to all of the Quran and not know the context.
Yes.
And not quote the context.
Good.
I think that stood out.
Excellent. Anybody else? Jubair, just before you live streaming, doesn't ask you questions. What stood out for you from last week?
Yeah, the same, the differences.
No, you can't do the same. You gotta give me something new. I'm gonna come down here in a minute, so you guys get ready. I'll come back to you. Hassan, what stood out for you last week? You were reading. No excuses.
For the different interpretation between each
The different interpretations between the scholars of faith. Okay?
I was just going to say that the hadith can be interpreted differently, and that it's not that the hadiths weren't preserved, but our understanding of them is what.
See, that's what raise your voices so the live stream can hear.
Our hadith, the hadith wasn't what was preserved, it was our understandings of them.
As well as the hadith, yeah, but the preservation of understanding as well. It's mu'ad here, no? I'm asking one here. Allah, anything last week stood out to you?
When you said about the Shafi and the, like, and I believe that you have an understanding of like the school of thought, that if something is not practical, and scholars say you can kind of take another opinion. That's something I've learned in the last session. The zakat.
So that can be taken out of context sometimes. That's where the problem arises. So it's allowed in a very specific circumstance to leave your school in a very specific circumstances. That's some kind of hesitance in that way. Specific circumstances where that is allowed. And that's kind of one. We'll talk about more of that. Okay, good. Listen. Hassan.
A madhab is a school of thought that generates the rulings of fiqh, jurisprudence, concerning 5 pillars of Islam, as well as every other aspect of your life. Business transactions, marriage, divorce, inheritance, food, governance, justice, etc.
So although Islam, in terms of the 5 pillars, that's what fiqh is focused on, it's not just solely focused on the 5 pillars. Your average book of fiqh, and I might bring you next time, inshallah, a book of fiqh, and show you, look, this is the index or chapters you find in your average fiqh book of a reasonable length. But essentially, you have your Bab al-Tahara, purification, then Salah, everything in that, and then you have fasting, you have zakat, you have hajj, and you have business and transaction. Then you have inheritance laws, and then you have marriage, and you have divorce. Then you have a chapter on punishments, hudud punishments, everything to do with that. Then you have a chapter on jihad, then you have the chapter on governance, and then a chapter on slavery. That's Shafi'i fiqh books. Other madhab is slightly different, but those topics are generally what the fiqh book is concerned with, inshallah.
Tells you what is halal, haram, disliked, sunnah, permissible, etc. What you get from the madhabs. If you are asking if something is haram, obligatory, disliked, recommended, or permissible, you are basically seeking an answer that is based on one of the 4 schools: Hanafi, Maliki, Shafi, and Hanbali. A scholar will answer your question based on the school he or she is an expert on. It's important that you are aware, before you ask your question, that the person you are asking is someone that is trained in one of the 4 schools.
From now on, I want you to start thinking that way. From now on. From now until the day you die, you can ask a question. Alright? Isn't halal or haram or Islam or mubah or whatever. What is the Islamic ruling? You now switch on and say, right, I need to ask somebody who is an expert in one of the 4 schools. Doesn't matter which one it is, I'm not an expert in one of the 4 schools. If you want a particular opinion from a particular school, you can ask. But don't now start just asking anybody without even wondering or even pondering, even asking what school, or even if they have a school. So from now on, that's what we want you guys to do. Alright? From now on. Okay?
Do not ask if you are unsure if they are trained.
Right, okay. Right, so remember last week we talked about the hadith, I think any hadith, they kind of apparently contradict each other, and mentioned how the scholars try to resolve that apparent contradiction. Do you remember what we said? I know you don't have the slides, but what do you remember? What are the ways they can kind of reconcile the differences between hadith? You remember?
Did they look at the time that it was said?
And that leads you on to this thing which is abrogated, and that which hasn't been abrogated, nasikh or mansukh. Certain hadith to abrogate, or the hadith. There are hadiths that are sahih. Yeah? Two hadith, both sahih. And both saying something different. Anybody remember? I'm just asking them. It's a big ask. أيوة. No, that is true, but a specific one. Both hadith is sahih. Both things make a bit different.
I was going to say the one with the graves.
Zane.
Is that about the fasting on Yom Arafah?
These are alright. I'm looking for a very specific one. Were you here Rebecca last week?
Yeah, Abdurrahman.
Abdurrahman.
No, but
How you can answer you were here?
I'll see if I get.
Huh? It's shame on these guys if you get. I'd be surprised if you get. A very specific example I mentioned last week. Exactly.
حديث متواتر
لا ask us something different. Annie.
Is it about people sitting up and standing up?
Yes. Explain to these guys and girls.
It was the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was ill at one point, and people were sitting, and he saw that he was sitting
Aywa.
and sat behind him.
Uh-huh.
And when the time off, he told him to stand up,
And he was sitting down.
and he was sitting down.
Now, which one do you use? Well, Sahih Hadith. Well, no, they're both Sahih. Both in Sahih Muslim. Well, Allah mentioned which one was the last thing the Prophet did. So one, the ruling in the latter of those abrogates the former. The books of Hadith won't tell you that, because that's not the function of the Muhaddith. The Muhaddith just classifies the Hadith and puts them in a book for you. It's up to the Faqih and the Usuli, for example, to work out how to resolve these things. Okay? So this is basically going on from last week. It's a bit heavy, but Bismillah. Hassan.
Early Muslim scholars, when examining problematic texts, began by attempting a series of preliminary academic tests and methods of resolution.
Why doesn't it need to be done? Because, as we just mentioned, sometimes the hadith will say different things. One hadith says this, and the other hadith says that. Yeah? So how do we reconcile?
The system developed by the early ulama was that if two Quranic or hadith texts appear to contradict each other, then the scholar must first analyze the text linguistically to see if the contradiction arises from an error in interpreting the Arabic.
So sometimes you get people who want to kind of criticize, for example, Islam, say, oh, this verse contradicts that verse. But you say, thank you very much. 1,000 years ago we dealt with this 1,000 years ago. You're a bit late. It's already been dealt with. Alright? But the problem is that you guys don't know that. That's the problem. You guys don't know your faith. Someone can come and shake you very quickly and make you start doubting the Quran is the word of Allah Azza wa Jalla. But no, these things have already been dealt with. The ulama of Usul al-Fiqh have dealt with this issue. And the same thing with Hadith. Some guy or girl can say, oh, look, you're Muslims, you claim your religion has been preserved. This Hadith says that, and this Hadith says this. What kind of faith has been preserved? It's full of contradictions. But it's not, it's already been dealt with. It's already been dealt with, alhamdulillah. Allah has preserved this deen. So what do we do? Huh? If two verses of Quran contradict, or apparently contradict, or hadith texts appear to contradict each other, the scholar must first analyze the text linguistically. Linguistically, what does that mean linguistically?
They study how, like, what the words might have meant back then.
The Arabic language, لغة. What's the Arabic language say here? What does Nahw say? What does Sarf say? What does Balagha say? Number 2.
If the contradiction cannot be resolved by this method, then he must attempt to determine on the basis of a range of textual, legal, and historiographic techniques whether one of them is subject to takhsis, restriction, that is, concerns special circumstances only, and hence forms a specific exception to the more general principle explained in the other text.
In the case where you've got two apparently conflicting, whatever you want to call it, verses of hadith, it may be one of them is very specific to a very specific situation, or even to a specific person. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam takhsis. Right?
The jurist must also assess the textual status of the reports, recalling the principle that a Quranic verse will overrule a hadith related by only one isnad, the type of hadith known as ahad, as well a hadith
Supplied by many isnads. So if a hadith has one chain of narration, and the hadith has multiple chains of narration, and they both apparently contradict each other, we go with that which has multiple chains of transmission, which means that so many people witnessed it or were there to hear it, to hear what was said or done. That overrules the one that only has one chain of relation.
If after applying all these mechanisms the jurist finds that the conflict remains, he must then investigate the possibility that one of the texts is subject to formal abrogation by the other.
Yeah, but we did last class, right? Give you some examples.
This principle of nafs is an example of how, when dealing with the delicate matter of Tawud al-Adillah, the Sunni ulama founded their approach on textual policies which had already been recognized many times during the lifetime of the Prophet. In cases where, in spite of all efforts, abrogation cannot be proven, then the ulama of the Salaf recognize the need to apply further tests.
You see how difficult it is? Huh? Well, it's difficult. And you guys doing your degrees or masters or PhDs, you don't have time for this. Huh? Unless you're a scholar. That's why you ask the scholars. You ask the jurists. The amounts of fiqh. They've done it all for you. But let's say all of that, and we still can't resolve what seems to be an apparent outward contradiction. What else is there?
Important among these is the analysis of the matn, the transmitted text rather than the isnad of the hadith.
So now we look at the text itself, the hadith itself. We analyze the chain of television, and so on and so on and so on and so on and so on, Abu Hurairah, or kada wa kada wa kada. If you can't find anything there, we look at the actual text itself, the method of the hadith, the core text. قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله كذا وكذا وكذا صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وسلم. That's what we look at. Is anything there that can give us a clue of how to resolve this apparent contradiction?
Clear statements are deemed to take precedence over elusive ones, and definite words take precedence over falling into more ambiguous categories, such as the interpreted, the obscure, and the problematic.
I don't expect you guys to get all this, but my idea behind this is to get you to realize the amount of work that goes into a scholar who follows a school in medtech. There's a lot of work gone into it. It hasn't just come out of that. There's a lot of work has gone into these schools. Isn't there?
It may also be necessary to look at the position of the narrators of the conflicting hadiths, giving precedence to the report issuing from the individual who is more directly involved. A famous example of this is the hadith narrated by Maymuna, which states that the Prophet ﷺ married her when not in a state of consecration for the pilgrimage. Because her report was that of an eyewitness, her hadith is given precedence over the conflicting report from Ibn Abbas, related by a similarly sound isnad, which states that the Prophet ﷺ was in fact in a state of ihram at the time.
Two hadith. The sanad in both are the same. Which means there's no weakness. But both say something different. Right? Now it could be that Ibn Abbas didn't know, he's just relating what he knew. As far as he knew, the Prophet didn't marry Maymuna during the ihram. By the way, ihram is when you go to Hajj or Umrah, and you put on the ihram. The guys is two white pieces of cloth or towels. The women, of course, they wear what they wear normally. When you're in that state of ihram, some of the things you can't do is this: you can't get married, for example. But here's a hadith saying Abd Abbas, well, he did marry her, and another hadith says, well, she didn't. Why do we take the one that she didn't over Ibn Abbas? Why? And that's another. Why did you just that's a weird thing?
She was more directly engaged with
Anyone, because she's the one getting married. So if she, obviously she has to know it. So that's how we resolve. That's how, well, not me, but that's how the fuqaha. That's how we resolve these things. You see, very logical. Very logical.
There are many other rules, such as that which states that the prohibition takes precedence over permissibility.
So things which say it's haram, they take precedence over things which say it's permissible. There's a whole list of things to be done.
Similarly, conflicting hadiths may be resolved by utilizing the fatwa of a companion, after taking care that all the relevant fatwa are compared and assessed.
We're going to talk about that later, probably after Maghrib.
Finally, recourse may be had to qiyas analogy.
Yes, analogy. After all of that, if we can't find something that can resolve this, we looked at that analogy, yes. It's a bit of a complicated chapter, but I don't expect all this to make sense, but the point is that this is the kind of work, effort that's gone into these schools. So be humble and follow these schools. The fact that you don't understand this tells you something about yourself, right? The fact you don't understand some of this stuff.
The techniques of abrogation, identification have enabled the ulama to resolve most of the recognized cases of Darul al-Adillah, conflicting reports. They demand a rigorous and detailed knowledge not just of the hadith disciplines, but of history, prophetic biography, and of the views held by the companions and other scholars on the circumstances surrounding the genesis and exegesis of the hadith in question.
And his tafsir.
Simply turning to a verse of Quran or to a page in a hadith book is clearly not going to work, as it's too simplistic.
Can we see that? Why that doesn't work right now? It's from the hadith sahih. I hope I've kind of pointed out now that it's not as simple as that. Follow the hadith sahih. Yeah? If you haven't yet grasped that point, you haven't been listening to me today and last week, go back and listen to what I've said.
A lot more is needed than following the Sahih Hadith or a Sheikh who says such thing.
So we'll look at Imam Shafi'i, inshallah. Inshallah, 150 to 201.
This careful articulation of the methods of resolving conflicting source texts, so vital to the accurate derivation of the Sharia from the revealed sources, was primarily the work of Imam Shafi'i.
So everything I've just been talking about today and last week about how to resolve these kind of conflicts within the hadith and Quran, Imam Shafi'i was the first one to actually put it into a system. A lot of what I've mentioned, a lot of what you've heard today, and what you heard last week, that's Imam Shafi'i's kind of way of resolving this conflict. He was the first scholar within the Sunni Orthodox Islam to talk about, to kind of resolve these things and put things into place. Okay?
Confronted by the confusion and disagreement among the jurists of his day, and determined to lay down a consistent methodology which could enable a fiqh to be established in which the possibility of error was excluded as far as was humanly possible, Shafi'i wrote his brilliant Risala.
It's a book, a Risala. Translated into English, should someone be interested in reading it.
His ideas were soon taken up in varying ways by jurists of other major traditions of law, and today they are fundamental to the formal application of the Sharia.
So other scholars saw the brilliance of Imam Shafi'i and liked what he was doing and took those principles on themselves and probably adapted it a little bit to their particular school. We're going to find out. But he was the first one to lay out the foundation that you've heard today and last week.
Shafi'i's system of minimizing mistakes in the derivation of Islamic rulings from the mass of evidence came to be known as usul al-fiqh.
So what is usul al-fiqh? Tell me. Mahdiya. Yeah, okay. Go back. My definition, good. Yours sounds better. Where? Next year I'll put yours instead. Shafi'i's system of minimizing mistakes in the deriving of Islamic rulings from the mass evidence came to be known as usul al-fiqh, or as she said. Keep going.
In time, each of the great interpretive traditions of Sunni Islam codified its own variation on these roots, thereby yielding, in some cases, divergent branches, specific rulings on practice.
So the other scholars, from the other schools, they took Imam Shafi'i's way of deriving rules and kind of modified it in the way that they, whoever Allah opened up to them in terms of, and so the usul, how to derive rulings, vary from school to school. Right?
It hardly needs remarking that although the four Imams, Abu Hanifa, Malik ibn Anas, Shafi, and Ibn Hanbal, are regarded as the founders of these four great traditions, which, if we were asked to define them, we might sum up as sophisticated techniques for avoiding innovation. Their traditions were fully systemized only by later generations of scholars. What does not following a madhab put you at risk of?
For those from the Sunni tradition, okay, obviously we're focusing on the Sunni tradition, there's other traditions, but primarily the Sunni tradition. If someone claims to be a Sunni and does not follow a madhab, what does that put you at risk of? You tell me.
Innovation.
Innovation.
The Sunni ulama rapidly recognized the brilliance of the four Imams, and after the late 3rd century of Islam, we find that hardly any scholars adhered to any other approach.
I'll put that in red and underline it because it's so important. Right? Hardly any scholar from then on in, from Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, from Sunni Orthodox Islam, adhered to any other approach. What does that tell you? Let's see, where can I pick up? So Fatima walked here before, she left. At the back. Aywa, what does that tell you? Raise your voice because the live stream.
That they're basically not stuck to the same four schools of thought, they've not changed it, they've not evolved, they're just basically stuck to the original formulas from the Imams.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
I think so.
Okay. Zane, what does that tell you?
It means that all the interpretations and all the fiqh research on the fiqh is considered to be so comprehensive that no other person has tried to add something, or they just come to a common point that they believe all these four school of thoughts are comprehensive enough to cater with all the interpretations of religion. So all the scholars have this followed these four schools instead of giving their own interpretations.
Oh, what's that tell you?
Some scholars did try
Don't complicate it. What's it tell you? Very simple. How did these scholars adhere to this approach? What's that tell you? Anything else? Fair. Sure.
Consistency.
If everyone's doing it, it must be right.
Say again?
If that many people are doing it, it must be right.
If that many people have agreed to it, you'd be wrong. And misguided. What did the hadith say in the beginning? My ummah? I say it every week. In the beginning of the slides, which you'll have to take.
Like you go with the vast majority. You go with the vast majority.
Someone says, why we follow madhabs? The most simplistic, easy answer that doesn't take a lot of brain cells, right? Is say historically the ummah, that's what they follow, and the vast majority have done that. And the hadith suggests that we follow the vast majority when there's difference of opinion. Or the majority. Simple. You don't have to think about big fancy hadith and this and that, which I'll give you anyway. I'll give you that today. But simplistically, can all these scholars be wrong? Is that what people are saying now? All these scholars are wrong? You're all wrong? And you and your Sheikh and your group is right? You claim to be Sunnis? Are you right? I can't accept that. Right? Logically, I don't accept that. Because what does it mean by Allah's preservation? Where has that preservation been if the vast majority are correct wrong? Where's Allah's promise? I don't accept that. Right. Nisha?
This is where the four madhabs made their own algorithms following this.
have a look at that. I'm going to ask you a question in 1 minute. Right then. Dua. Uh-huh. What stands out from that to you? Just looking at it, what stands out to you?
Yeah, so this scholars were the closest to the Tabi'in and Sahaba's time, so they were the most direct to this era. So especially Malik and Abu Hanifa, where Shafi'i learned from them, from Malik especially.
So don't move too much, just tell me what you see.
Yeah.
Tell me what you
it's
see.
it's
What's
closest
stuck out?
to the first.
Hey, they're close, right? Very close. Anything else? Put your hands up. What stands out to you? What interests you in that?
So firstly, you are right that the period is quite close, like starting from 80 to year 204. And secondly, after 204, and it's around 1441. So the Ummah is following the same school of thought for the last 1200 years.
1200 years, mashallah.
So this is another kind of shahada
Excellent.
that Mazhab has been preserved, and they are following the law.
Excellent. Good. Someone's getting my point. Taha.
I was gonna say the same about it's been
come on.
followed for the
Come
whole.
on. Can't copy this then.
I was actually, that's why I put my hand down, because that's what I was gonna say.
Like, as good as him?
I don't know.
Anything else? Mahdiya. What stands out to you? Say that again?
Like Abdo, maybe it's called Sheikh. We got a lot of different principles coming from
Yep. Okay. So here?
You know when you said Imam Shafi'i was like one of the early people to do usul al-fiqh, so how did the people like Imam Abu Hanifa and Imam Malik before him, how did they like make their madhabs if there was no usul al-fiqh?
They made their madhabs. You have to ask a Hanafi.
Oh,
I don't know. Good
okay.
question. But they did. But I think Imam Shafi'i kind of brought a lot of stuff to the table, and I think they kind of influenced them a lot. Taha, tell me what you see.
I don't know if it was said, but like they were quite close to the Rasul's time, so the narration.
That's what Dua was saying.
Yeah.
It's close to the time of the Prophet. I mean, remember Hanifa, when was he born?
80.
It says 80 and died? That's 80 years after the Prophet Hijrah. Very close, Abu Hanifa. Anything else? No. I'm asking the questions.
It's to do with that.
No. Leave the question at the end. The point is, what do you see? Because there's a times of the essence. Question at the end. What do you see? Just look at it.
If one goes together, is it perhaps, I don't know, at any point they might have, and when did they interact?
Yeah, they talk about
So
We're talking
they
about
go
it.
together.
Anything else? Have a read. Something in particular standing out. Abdurrahman.
They're from the golden generations of the Salaf.
Allahu Akbar. Meaning?
The Prophet ﷺ praised them.
Okay, see this word here. Can someone has to read this loud?
Hanafi, Shafi'i, Maliki, Ahmed bin Hanbal are considered to be from the Salaf.
I'll put it there. I'll put this slide here, see? They're from the Salaf. Abu Abdurrahman, explain what that Salaf means here.
The first 3 generations.
طيب, what's so important about the first 3 generations?
They're the one, like the Sahaba, they were taught by the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Sahaba taught the Tabi'een, the students, and then the students taught the students of the students.
طيب.
Tabi'een.
So the Prophet spoke about this early generation, okay, and praised this early generation. And as you alluded to, as you've seen, and my point is to make you see it, these 4 Imams and their schools are from the early generation, are from the Salaf. Following these Imams is following the... A bit louder. One more time. طيب, let's stop to pray Maghrib, inshallah. Guys, took a long time. It'll be Isha by the time we got the answer. Good job that Abdul was here. Well, it's Isha. So, دعوت للهدى والراشد الخير حقق في نصر كتاب الله وسنة رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. سبحان الله والحمد لله لا اله الا الله الله اكبر ولا حول ولا قوه الا بالله. Abdurrahman reminds, in case those forgot, those of those who came after, reminds of the point that I was trying to get across, which Abdurrahman noticed. What's the point?
They're the
Louder.
golden generation.
And the four Imams, they're from the Salaf, which is in the golden generation. All of these madhabs essentially are following the Salaf. Alright, that's the point. Bismillah. Hassan.
Hadith scholars and their contribution to the madhabs. One great hadith specialist, the great hadith specialists including Al-Bukhari and Muslim, were all loyal adherents of one or another of the madhabs, particularly that of Imam Shafi'i.
Why? I don't know, but it is what it is. Doesn't mean that other scholars, hadith scholars that exist, didn't follow the schools. Just means that a lot of the household names of hadith specialists that you guys kind of know of generally tend to be Shafi'i. Doesn't mean there's others any less rank. Right?
But within each madhab, leading scholars continue to improve and refine the roots and branches of their school. For instance, scholars of the school of Imam Abu Hanifa, which was built on the foundations of the early legal schools of Kufa and Basra, were wary of some hadiths in circulation in Iraq because of the prevalence of forgery engendered by the strong sectarian influences there.
Alright, so?
Later, however, once the canonical
Go on, you try.
canonical collections of
Is that how you pronounce it? Canonical? You sure?
Yeah.
Canonical.
This one better.
Go on, Ali.
Canonical collections of Bukhari, Muslim, and others became available. Subsequent generations of Hanafi scholars took the entire corpus of hadith into account in formulating and revising their
Can
madhab.
you repeat that again? I think that's an important point. Alright, pay attention to this last paragraph.
From the start.
Not last paragraph, later.
Later, however, once the
Keep going. Focus.
collections of Bukhari, Muslim, and others became available, subsequent generations of Hanafi scholars took the entire corpus of hadiths into account in formulating and revising their madhab.
So the baseless criticism that some people of no knowledge make against the Hanafi school, it's weak because it doesn't take into consideration hadiths, is completely not true at all. Because the later generation of Hanafi scholars took the entire corpus of hadiths into consideration. That's a very important point for those who are Hanafi when they get criticized. Understand that point?
This type of process continued for 2 centuries, until the schools reached a condition of maturity in the 4th and 5th centuries of the Hijrah.
I just want to take it back a point. So when somebody says, oh, in the Hanafi school, they don't do X, Y, and Z. Let's say, for example, in the Hanafi school, they don't raise their hand, say, Sami Allah, Alhamdulillah. Despite we have a hadith, Sahih, saying that you do. Like we say, Jazakallah khair. The scholars knew the hadith. But to them, in their knowledge, in their deep knowledge, there was something else that you know that they knew, that shifted their attention to the position that raising the hands is not sunnah. How many Hanafis have been stuck at that point because you have no knowledge and you get shook and end up following other beliefs, so to speak. Those who are Hanafi, pay attention. I'm sticking up for you guys. I'm not Hanafi, I'm Shafi'i. I'm sticking up for you guys, so you guys know what you're doing. How many weak-minded people have kind of took the rug underneath many Hanafis because they don't understand this point.
This type of process continued for 2 centuries, until the schools reached a condition of maturity in the 4th and 5th centuries of Hijrah.
What does this tell you? Read that last paragraph again.
This type of process.
Now let them read it. You have a rest. Let them read it. You can't do all the work. Give me 20 seconds. And I'm going to ask, pick someone's name up. Start with sisters. What does this tell you? You guys ready? No? Mahdi, don't worry. Take somebody else. You're in the corner. Alright, I'll come back to you, see what you're taking in. Right at the back, next to Fatima. Well, to tell you, just read that paragraph before. This type of process continued for 2 centuries until the schools reached a condition of maturity in the 4th and 5th centuries. What's that say? Indeed. Go on. Exactly. Say it again to the people on the live stream so they can hear. It was revised for several centuries. It wasn't just we follow Imam Abu Hanifa blindly and don't know anything, which is nothing wrong with following Abu Hanifa. Imam Abu Hanifa, man, huwa. SubhanAllah, I have no problems with following Imam Abu Hanifa, not learning his videos. His name's in there. That's good. I'm a Shafi'i, by the way. Okay? The point is this, as she rightly pointed out, these things, these madhahib were a work work in progress. Over centuries, over time, we looked at hadiths came in, we checked, rechecked, and the process. There is a process, you see. Amazing. Alright. That we already know. That we already know. Imam Bukhari. Before when do you think Imam Bukhari was? Should have done that. Imam Bukhari, the famous Imam Bukhari, roughly, when do you think he was ignored what you've seen? Unsee it. Unsee what you've seen. If you had to have a guess, when do you think Imam Bukhari was? 300.
194.
Huh?
194.
Okay, well done. Why? Anybody else? You have to take a guess. Imam Bukhari. Would you think he's around here, Imam Bukhari? Or in the middle?
Dots are over there.
Huh? Yes, so?
The dots are around 200.
Could be something else.
Fine.
Like, okay, fair enough. Point taken. You took the sting out of it. So Bukhari, and Bukhari said, Imam Muslim, 204, died 261. What does that tell you? Bukhari Muslim. Hands up. What does that tell you? Bukhari Muslim.
The both sounds in the time.
Yeah, this is the time. Abu Dawud, 202, died 275. And then, rightly notice the dots, the blue dots give it away. Imam Tirmidhi, 209, 279. Ibn Majah, 209, died 273. How many hadith scholars have I just mentioned? How many? Yes, you mentioned Nasai. Nasai is a 6. What's that say? 215, died 303. For those who don't know, these 6 Imams are known as, their books are called Ummuhat, the mother books of Hadith. These are the 6 main collections of Hadith in the Sunni tradition. It does not mean that Hadiths don't exist in other books, are not there. There are Hadith that are not in these 6 books that are Sahih, but in other books. And there's articles which I'll give you to read. We'll talk about Imam Bukhari saying he put just a fraction of the hadith that he knew that was sahih. A fraction of it is in this book. The rest is somewhere else. The idea that only these 6 books have hadith in the sahih and no other book has hadith in outside of these 6 is not right. It's not right. It never has been. But it's interesting, right? You can see where these figures are. Alright? And this type of process, which is what? Process Mahdiya mentioned, the progress in blue. This type of process continued for 2 centuries until the schools reached a condition of maturity in the 4th and 5th centuries. All this time they checked and rechecked any mistakes. Any hadith not known to the Imams at the time, scholars after him took it into consideration. Imam Shafi'i revised his school twice in his life. In his own lifetime, he revised. In the Shafi'i school, there's 2 madhabs, madhab al-qadim and madhab al-jadid. The old school and the new school. So he himself in his own life revised it. This idea that, they missed hadith and this and this, that, it's far-fetched. And if it did happen, scholars after it picked it up. So don't worry. Some simple-minded people like to say in this day and age. Alright? The idea that the schools disunified us is rubbish. Absolute rubbish. There were times when it was a bit like any competition, but not like the chaos you have today. Not the chaos you have today. Listen.
It was at that time that the attitude of toleration and good opinion between the schools became universally accepted. This was formulated by Imam al-Ghazali himself, the author of 4 textbooks of Shafi'i fiqh, and also al-Mustafsa, widely acclaimed as the most advanced and careful of all works on usul al-fiqh and madhab. With his well-known concern for sincerity and his dislike for ostentatious scholarly rivalry, he strongly condemned what he called fanatical attachment to a madhab. While it was necessary for the Muslim to follow a recognized madhab in order to avert the lethal danger of misinterpreting the sources, he must never fall into the trap of considering his own school categorically superior to the others. The great scholars of Sunni Islam have followed the ethos outlined by Imam al-Ghazali and have been conspicuously respectful of each other's madhab. Anyone who has studied in the traditional ulama will be well aware of this fact.
I can testify to that being the case. When you study with traditional scholars, this gets automatically, naturally, you are drinking this meaning. By learning a school, you are taught directly and indirectly in other schools about it, and your school is one truth, but not the only truth. And Imam al-Ghazali was right there. Okay? Hujjat al-Islam, the proof of Islam.
Origins of the madhabs. Where did they come from? Did they exist in the time of the Prophet or something?
Did they exist at the time of the Prophet? Hands up. No? So why follow them? Why follow them? Why follow? I'm asking a question, right? Why follow them? We're commanded to follow the Prophet. Abdurrahman, we're commanded to follow the Prophet. عليك بسنتي وسنة الخلفاء. We're commanded to follow the Prophet and the Sahaba and the Tabi'in. But they didn't exist at the time of the Prophet. Madhabs didn't exist. What madhab of the Prophet following? Was he Hanafi? Was he Maliki? Was he Shafi'i? Was it Abu Bakr Hanafi? Nothing. These are simplistic things that people have shaken people's faith with this kind of stuff. How many people have left all the madhabs and followed the madness that we have today, based on simple arguments like this. You laugh, I've seen it. And some of them end up in prison. That's how funny that is.
If they didn't, why do we need to follow them?
Why do we need to follow them? If we didn't exist them. In other words, it's a bid'ah. Following a method is a bid'ah. Is it not?
If I follow one, am I following the Prophet? Can I just follow someone that knows all the schools and can tell me the strongest opinion?
Excuse me. How many of you have seen that? Follow.
Which one is right and which one is wrong? Can just pick between them. How will you judge? When Allah's Messenger ﷺ wished to send Mu'adh ibn Jabal to Yemen, he asked him, how will you judge if an issue is presented to you for judgment? By what is in Allah's book, he replied. And if you do not find it in Allah's book,
Then what? You tell me. Then what? No, someone said it over here. Someone said it. The Sunnah.
then by the Sunnah of Allah's Messenger ﷺ.
And then what?
And if it is not in the Sunnah of Allah's Messenger ﷺ,
Then what?
Then have a discussion and ijtihad.
Dude, man, you ruined it. Stop asking questions. No more questions for you.
then I shall strive in my own judgment.
Which is اجتهد رأيي. So we're going to talk about obviously Zane or knows where we're going with this one, inshallah.
Allah's Messenger ﷺ struck my chest and said, praise be to Allah that has guided the messenger's messenger to that which makes Allah's Messenger ﷺ happy.
So the Prophet gets happy here. So what's he done? What's the Prophet teaching you? Or what is he kind of teaching Mu'adh ibn Jabal? How are you going to judge between people? Quran. And if you can't find it in the Quran, go to Yemen. It's da'wah. Go to Yemen. And the teaching people of Yemen, my ancestors. And he says, well, if you can't find it in the Quran, then what? But in the Sunnah, what he knows of the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Because if you can't find the answer in the Sunnah, then what? Then what? What did he say? And I should strive in my own judgment. أجتهد رأيي. I'm going to do what's called ijtihad. And that's what we're going to talk about now. What is ijtihad? We're going to talk about now. But the point the Prophet got happy. The Prophet, the Prophet affirmed that process. Alright? That's why I said, how will you judge? Okay, Hadith Abu Dawud. Okay, listen.
Okay, can I make my own judgment, ijtihad, or follow a sheikh that claims he can? What are the requirements to be able to do this?
What are the requirements for you to make your own, to derive rulings from the Quran and Hadith? Can anybody do it? Is it just, I have the Quran at home, I can go to the appropriate page in Hadith books and just type in? Is it just that simple? Do you need Arabic? We've got the English translation, right? Do I need Arabic?
How hard is it to become qualified to make my own judgment? Time, teacher, authorization, piety, God-fearing, taqwa. Where or how can I find such a scholar? If someone claims to know how to make their own judgment, how do I know if they can?
How do you?
e.g., someone claiming to tell you which is the right position from the four schools when they differ.
The Hanafi school says this, the Maliki school says this, the Shafi'i school says this, the Hanbali school says this, and I say the strongest opinion is this. Is that a valid approach? Is that valid for somebody to say that in this day and age? A scholar to say that in this day and age? Well, let's take a step back and let's ask ourselves some questions. A mujtahid, just to clarify, for those listening on live stream, not a mujahid, a mujtahid. Twice today, I've heard somebody say a mujahid. A mujahid is someone that does jihad. I'm not talking about that. We will touch on that next semester. I'm talking about mujtahid. Right? What is a mujtahid, Hassan?
A term derived from the famous hadith of Mu'adh ibn Jabal.
Yeah, that term mujtahid is taken from the hadith of Mu'adh ibn Jabal. It's actually going to strive to use my own judgment. Ijtahidu.
A mujtahid is a scholar qualified to perform ijtihad, defined as personal effort to derive a sharia ruling from the revealed sources.
So a mujtahid is somebody that has enough knowledge to go to the Quran, to go to the hadith, and derive rulings himself, without any recourse to any scholars. He can look to the Quran, the hadith, and gain and give you the right ruling. Right? That's called what? Not mujahid. Mujtahid. Okay? Someone who can perform ijtihad. Okay? Personal effort to derive a shari'i ruling from the revealed sources. What are the revealed sources? Listen.
His chief task, the actual process of derivation, is called the istinbat, originally signifying in Arabic, bringing up water with difficulty from a well.
So the chief task of a mujtahid is to derive rulings. But the word in Arabic is istinbat. Literally in Arabic language is to bring up water from the well in the Arabic language. Istinbat. The Arabs would use that word to mean somebody gone to a well and taken water out of the well with some difficulty. And the mujtahid does the same thing. He'll pull out water for you from the Quran and from the Sunnah for you to drink. Okay?
According to most scholars, an expert who has fully mastered the sources and fulfilled a variety of necessary scholarly conditions is not permitted to follow the prevalent rulings of his school, but must derive the rulings himself from the revealed sources.
If you've reached the level of a mujtahid, alright, you can't follow a method. It's not allowed. Why? Because you are a method. You are at that level. Right? Why are you following other scholars when you yourself are a scholar? You don't follow. Okay? You have reached the level of a mujtahid that can do ijtihad. That level. Question: what is that level, and what conditions does somebody have to have in order to reach the level of a mujtahid? Not mujahid, mujtahid. Okay. Examples: the 4 imams reached this level. The 4 imams. Who are the 4 imams? Imam Abu Hanifa, Imam Malik, Imam Shafi'i, and Ahmad ibn Hanbal. Okay. So Imam Shafi'i was from the Prophet's family as a visa. Okay. Question. Did the Sahaba differ at the time of the Prophet? There's a wisdom why I put this here. There's a wisdom. I'll ask you later on why I put this slide here. It wasn't by accident. Did the Sahaba differ at the time of the Prophet? Can you give me an example?
When the Sahaba were traveling in the Asr time.
Yes. Hisham, which is the khutbah 3 weeks ago? 3 weeks ago. Yeah. Very quickly, the Prophet ﷺ addressed the Sahaba. Don't pray Salat al-Asr until you reach the destination of Bani Qurayza. Right? When you reach that destination, then what? Pray Asr there. In their travels, they became split between them. What was the split? Some of the Sahaba said, yeah, we've got a problem because by the time we get to our destination, Maghrib has come in. Maghrib has come in. Okay? So it means delaying our prayer, which is not good. Awesome. So they said, let's stop praying. The others said no. Because what did the Prophet say, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam? What did the Prophet say? Fatima, what did the Prophet say? Every Asr. So one group has said, alhamdulillah, if we don't, our prayers can go out. And the other one thinking literally, well, the Prophet said, we're going to follow that way. Both of these caused an issue, and they did what was right. They came to the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and asked him what to do. And the Prophet said, what? Both were right. He what? Hassan.
The Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam approved both parties in their ijtihad.
He approved both parties in their what? Is that not fascinating? Is that not beautiful? Yeah? The Prophet didn't say both were right. The Prophet is teaching us something very beautiful. What's the lesson? Hands up. What is the lesson?
Tolerance between different opinions.
Tolerance between different opinions. Sahaba different. And the Prophet accepted both. And who's the clever person that can tell me why I put this here?
Is it not clever? Or is it that
It depends on the answer.
the only reason that I can't get difference of opinions if it's from five people that Islam or had that over Islam, so they were allowed to have two opinions.
Okay. What's the wisdom in putting it here? Why not? Why not put it there?
There's so much, people get so worked up over so much difference today, which just proves that the Prophet allowed tolerance.
Okay.
That it's fine to have it in the modern day.
Who said that? What's your name?
That's mine.
Fran. Loud.
It's regarding the four schools.
Yes. Go on, keep going.
Having tolerance between the four schools and not having sort of division. Sort of saying one's better than the other. That sort of thing.
Where did the difference of opinion between the four schools come from? That's my point. Why do I mention here the Sahaba differed? The Sahaba differed. The Sahaba differed. They weren't all unified in particular points. They differed. The same way that the Tabi'in after them differed, and the Tabi'in differed, and then the Hanifin differed, and then Malik differed, and then the Shafi'i differed, and then Muhammad differed. The difference came from before. They just systemized it. That is such an important point. Hence the topic, the origins of the madhabs. Do you get that point? Does anybody want me to say it again? No questions, questions at the end. Anybody miss that particular point? Right? Someone come and fix this thing. University schools stuff is rubbish. Someone come and fix it. The IT support. Just jump on there. This doesn't happen at Algeria, by the way. So when people say, pay attention, that point that I've just gone past your heads, past your minds, is such an amazing and important point that the Sahaba differed. Okay, here we go. Alright, Bismillah Hassan.
Sahabas who were mujtahid and differed in their opinion with one another.
Mujtahid. Taha, what's a mujtahid?
People that make their like their own decisions from things.
Don't ghettoize it. Zen.
The one who takes the water from the well.
Alright, give me the more. That's correct, both are correct, but give me what I said before. Those who take Anik, we took those from you.
The qualified scholar who pick up
Derived rulings. Like, Bismillah. Go.
The Caliph Umar radiallahu anhu
Pay attention.
followed certain rulings of Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, saying, I would be ashamed before God to differ from the view of Abu Bakr.
There we go. Abu Bakr and Umar, they differed.
Ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu, in turn, despite being a mujtahid in the fullest sense, used in certain issues to follow Umar. According to Al-Shabi, 6 of the companions of the Prophet ﷺ used to give fatwas to the people: Ibn Mas'ud, Umar ibn Khattab, Ali, Zane ibn Thabit, Ubay ibn Ka'b, Abu Musa.
Please pay attention. Not all the Sahaba were ulama. They weren't all scholars. And I say that in full respect of the Sahaba. Inshallah, greater than scholars. But they weren't all scholars. Some were military geniuses, some were businessmen, some were farmers, some were kind of, not everyone could be a scholar. Which meant that those who were scholars, their answers were sought out by the other Sahaba. So we have what? 2 groups, right? Those who know and those who don't know. And Allah says in the Quran, فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلَ الذِّكْرِ إِن كُنتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. Ask the people of knowledge if you do not know. These are massively important points that we get. The Sahaba asked the Sahaba. And there's nothing wrong if people wanted to ask questions to Ibn Mas'ud only and stick to Ibn Mas'ud only and nobody else. They could do that. And nobody said anything. It's very important. I'll say that again. If Sahaba took their knowledge from Ibn Mas'ud and people took their knowledge from Ibn Mas'ud and that was it, I wouldn't take their knowledge from anybody else. There's nothing wrong with that. You're not going to get all the Sahaba to know, they come to me. There's a point I'm making. We had nothing at that time saying you can't go and ask this Sahabi and not to ask this Sahabi. If people were happy with Ibn Mas'ud, they could take the knowledge of Ibn Mas'ud. If people were happy taking the knowledge of Ali ibn Abi Talib, they could. And no one would say anything. Why now do we get to the madhabs? You can't follow one madhab. As the penny dropped. It goes back here. People follow a particular scholar and they followed him. And if they wanted just to follow him and nobody else, they could. So people say you can't, it's a bid'ah to follow one madhab. What are you going to say here? What are you going to say here? I hope this point has sunk in for those who pay attention to this particular point.
In doubt of these, 3 would abandon their own judgments in favor of the judgments of 3 others.
Despite them being scholars, 3 would abandon their own judgments. They asked them to follow these 3. Who are they?
Abdullah ibn Mas'ud would abandon his own judgment for the judgment of Umar. Abu Musa would abandon his own judgment for the judgment of Ali. Zane would abandon his own judgment for the judgment of Ubay ibn Ka'b. This ethos was passed on to the following generations of scholars.
Okay, that's what to do. What does this tell you?
This is the origins of the 4 schools and their differences which were passed on to generations after the Sahaba.
The 4 schools, all they are, is a continuation of the differences of opinion that existed during the time of the Prophet, that existed during the time of the Tabi'in and the Tabi'in. That's what it is. Nothing new. Don't be fooled by people of innovation of this age saying these madhabs didn't exist at the time of the Prophet. They existed at the time of the Prophet. Differences of opinion existed at the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Do you get my point? I hope you do. اللهم صل عليه وعلى محمد. What does that tell you? It's a control area. Abu Hanifa took advice from the Sahaba. He actually met the tail end of the Sahaba. Abu Hanifa, on record, as having met the tail end of the Sahaba. Few Sahaba who lived, yeah, he caught the tail end. That's the point. Some people disagree. There you go. Some people disagree because they have problems. And he taught, huh? Who are they? Who are they? Huh? All of Abu Hanifa, the main students. طيب, keep following it. Was taught by Muhammad. Alright? And Abu Yusuf taught, or one of Abu Yusuf, one of Ahmed ibn Hanbal's teachers, Abu Yusuf. Can you see where it's coming from? The knowledge, where it's flowing from. Back to our Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Alright? The Sahaba then taught Sufyan bin Uyayna. So here's the Prophet, orange. Green, the Sahaba. Yellow, the Tabi'een. Is that turquoise, you guys call that? You call that? You ask the girls know better. What colour is that? Huh? Right, you want to you. Yeah, you tell me. What colour is that? Anyway. Blue. Boys. We can call it أطول أشخاص. Violet, خلاص. مهدية. Just pay attention. There's a colour code to this. Alright? The Sahaba is in green. Pay attention. The Sahaba is in green. Yellow is a generation after. Violet is the Tabi'een. Okay? So after Sahaba, the generation after Sahaba, you had Sufyan bin Uyayna, who's from the generation after the Sahaba, called Tabi'een. The Sahaba, they have Tabi'een. طيب, Sufyan bin Uyayna, he taught Imam Shafi'i and taught Ahmed ibn Hanbal. Interesting where it comes from. Imam Shafi'i taught who? Ahmed ibn Hanbal. Look at the bottom, red line. They're all connected. Alright, Abu Hurairah, Abdullah ibn Abbas, and the Sahaba, they taught Ibn Harmaz, Harmus, I'm not sure how it's Harmaz. Okay? From the Tabi'een. And he taught Anas bin Malik. Knowledge being passed on from the time of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, down to the Sahaba, down to the Tabi'een, down to the Imams themselves. Imam Malik taught Imam Shafi'i. Aisha, may Allah be pleased with her, she taught Nafi' bin Mawla bin Umar. Tabi'een, yeah? Sheikh Khalid told you, Nafi'. Qali, beside with me. Aisha said, you want to ask Sheikh Khalid if you can?
I asked it once.
Hafs after Nafi'. Okay, you're right. طيب, نافع بن مولى بن عمر taught Imam Malik. So Imam Malik's knowledge came from Nafi', who took from Aisha, from the Mu'mineen. Abu Bakr Siddiq taught Qasim bin Muhammad, from the generation after him, the students, who then taught Abdurrahman bin Aziz, if I pronounced it correctly, who then went and taught Imam Malik, several teachers, all flowing from the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Anas bin Malik, Zubayr bin Awam, taught Umar bin Zubayr, who taught Anas bin Malik taught Abu Zinad, Mawla Ramla, who taught Imam Malik. And there's others, it's just simplistic, right? Sayyidina Ali taught MashaAllah, and the other Sahaba taught MashaAllah, right? Just very simplistic. I've just put that there for you so you can see where it comes from. The idea when people say, Akhi, don't follow madhabs, follow the Quran and the Sunnah, is ridiculous. It's as if they're saying that the four Imams just came with something new. Ridiculous. They took it from the Tabi'een, they The teachers were the Tabi'in, and their teachers were the Sahaba, and their teachers were the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Do you get the point? Alright, Bismillah.
Authority in sacred law is found in the following: the Quran, the Sunnah, Hadith of the Prophet ﷺ that covered what he said, did, and kept silence on. The consensus of scholars, the agreement of Muslims existing at one particular period after the Prophet ﷺ's death on a particular thing, valid analogy.
I want you to pay attention. Authority in Islam is not just in the Quran and Sunnah. If something is not in the Quran, we go to the Sunnah. If something is not in the Sunnah, we go to the Ijma', the consensus. What's Ijma'? Ijma'.
Is the opinions of the majority of the scholars.
The opinions of the majority of scholars. It goes back to what I've been saying all along. The vast majority of scholars, for the vast majority of time, I'm not making this up. It's based on stuff. Right? Ijma'. Ijma'. The scholars in a particular area have all come to agree on something. Khalas, that sticks from then to Yawm al-Qiyamah. They come to agree on a particular thing, a particular ruling, Allah. And then you have, if that fails, we go to Qiyas, analogy. And what they issue. If you can't find the answer to it, we'll go back to the past. Anything in the past, the scholars will look at the past. Any ruling similar that we can gain, draw an analogy from, inshallah. So it's not just Quran and Sunnah. Alright, this is the point. What we do now, we're going to finish off soon, inshallah. When we talk about mujtahid, not mujahid, mujtahid, and we talk about the conditions of mujtahid. What are the conditions? How much knowledge are we looking at in order for somebody to go to the Quran and Sunnah and do all this stuff we've been talking about for 2 weeks? What knowledge? How much knowledge? Half the Quran, is that all we need? It's half the Quran. He knows 10 qira'at, he knows some hadith. It's a lot more than that. So we're talking about mujtahid. To go to the Quran and Sunnah directly and the right ruling. So the knowledge of Abu Hanifa, Malik, Shafi'i, Ahmed, and Hanbal is this. Bismillah.
In order to protect the Sharia from danger of innovation and distortion, the great scholars of Usul laid down rigorous conditions which must be fulfilled by anyone wishing to claim the right of ijtihad for himself. Number 1. Mastery of the Arabic language to minimize the possibility of misinterpreting revelation on purely linguistic grounds.
With Arabic language, nahu, sarf, balagha, to know that the poetry, the Jahiliyyah poetry, the poetry of the early Arabs, because certain words that early Arabs knew. You have no dictionaries. You have to be a master of the Arabic language. Imam Shafi'i spent 60 years, if I'm not mistaken, studying Arabic. Arabic language only, for 16 years.
Number 2. Profound knowledge of the Quran and Sunnah and the circumstances surrounding the revelation of each verse and hadith, together with a full knowledge of the Quranic and hadith commentaries and the control of all the interpretive techniques discussed above.
Is that easy? Do you know what we're asking right there? We're asking profound knowledge, not just hifz. You memorize the Quran and you memorize hadith. No. The circumstances behind every verse to do ahkam, rulings. What was the circumstance between each of those verses being revealed? What triggered it? And the same in every single hadith. The circumstances of every hadith, the context of every hadith. And to make it more difficult, certain verses of the Quran have different, scholars said different things as to the reason why they were revealed. There's a difference of opinion on certain verses as to what the reason was that Allah revealed that particular verse. You've got to know all of that. And then all the commentaries. Alright? Amazing. And the control of all the interpretive techniques. Discussed before. Nasikh and mansukh and this and that. Okay. All of that you've got to know.
Number 3. Knowledge of the specialized disciplines of hadith, such as the assessment of narrators and of the matan.
Then all the hadith, all the narrators in the hadith, who were they, how strong were they, how this, how that. Because you're going to take hadith, right? And you want to know what they. You have to have your own system. What's sahih, what's da'if.
Number 4. Knowledge of the views of the companions, followers, and the great imams, and of the the positions and reasoning expounded in the textbooks of fiqh, combined with the knowledge of cases where consensus has been reached.
So you have to know all of that as well. What have scholars said? And all the fatwa of all the Sahaba. Easy? Who do you think that's easy? It's not easy. It's not easy at all. It's a miracle that these 4 Imams even had this. But we're not finished yet.
Number 5. Knowledge of the science of analogy, its types and conditions. Number 6. Knowledge of one's own society and of public interest. Number 7. Knowing the general objectives of the Sharia, which are 5. Number 8. A high degree of intelligence and personal piety, combined with the Islamic virtues of compassion, courtesy, and modesty.
The 4 Imams had all of these down. They locked these down quickly. A miracle. It is a miracle. In terms of the human intellect that is needed to do all of this, we're talking about how many megabytes of knowledge here. Just think about that. Just pause and think. These 3 Imams, Allah gave them an opening, unlike any other opening. To have this amount of knowledge, this should really kind of boggle your minds. Again, Allah. Allah's promise preserves sleep. Just one of these is a lifelong achievement, by the way. One of these is a lifelong achievement.
A scholar who has fulfilled these conditions can be considered a mujtahid.
Mujtahid fi-shar'.
And is not obliged or even permitted to follow an existing authoritative madhab. The 4 Imams were examples of this and had a huge following from their time up to the present day. No one after them has made the claim to be a mujtahid fi-shar' and had their claims accepted by the scholars of the day.
It's an point. Nobody since their time claimed to reach the level of ijtihad. All of the scholars agree this is the criteria. We all agree on that. And it's, well, anybody is welcome to try to reach that level. Male or female. Islam. Anybody. Few claim it. One of the most famous ones is Imam Suyuti from Egypt. He claimed that. Imam Suyuti is an amazing scholar. You know anything about Imam Suyuti? He was not a topic except that he wrote on every single topic, tafsir, aqidah, language. In fact, he got to a point in his life he wanted to write something. And he was looking around for a topic of what to write. He couldn't find it. Everything that was worth writing, he wrote on. Orientalists won't take Orientalists. Orientalists said his books numbered hundreds. Some of them are found in museums in London because they've gone and taken it from Muslim lands. So Imam Suyuti, he claimed that position. By the way, he found one topic that nobody had ever read, that nobody had ever written on. Any idea? It was one topic. Apart from me, because I think I told you. Any topic, one topic he found, no one's ever written on. This is that one, his own life. His autobiography, he says that I was looking for a topic to write, couldn't find anything that I had written on the knowledge. So he wrote his own what was ever written about my life. Okay, one point, Imam Suyuti, and he comes later on, like 6th or 7th century later on, he claims I've reached that level. So the scholars, asked a board of scholars now, let's test you out. Just because you say it. Like this age, someone goes on TikTok and starts talking, and all you guys fall all amazed. Yeah, talk about real scholar, people who know what's going on. Yeah, let's sit down. You're Imam Suyuti, mashallah, mashallah. Let's test it out because you're saying something big. We're going to test you out. And he tested him out. He was tested, and he took back his claim. He took it back. But my point is, the level is so high, no one's claimed it and it's been accepted. This age, everyone's mujtahid, mashallah. Everyone's mujtahid. Open your TikTok or Instagram, everyone's mujtahid now. You probably passed 6 of them on your way in today. Everyone's mujtahid. Either ultra conservative or ultra liberal. All mujtahids. When somebody's trying to convince you hijab is not obligatory, what are they doing? Ijtihad. Which is the wrong ijtihad. Don't even have the Arabic language before fiqh or anything else. It's the craziest to have. طيب اسمع. I'm trying to finish off here.
For the much greater number of scholars whose expertise has not reached such dizzying heights, it may be possible to become a mujtahid fil madhab, that is, a scholar who remains broadly convinced of the doctrines of his school, but is qualified to differ from received opinion.
So the difference of opinion within the madhab itself, scholars will differ between themselves because they're a mujtahid in the madhab. They can strive to find the opinion they think is strongest within the school, or the stuff on the madhab.
There have been a number of examples of such men. Imam al-Nawawi among the Shafi'is, Ali ibn Abdo among the Malikis, Ibn Abdin among the Hanafis, Ibn Qudama among the Hanbalis.
Imam al-Nawawi, who's heard of Imam al-Nawawi? 40 hadith, Riyadh Salihin, and all the rest. He wrote a commentary on Sahih Muslim. He was a mujtahid in the school, in the madhab. He wasn't even a mujtahid at the rank of Abu Hanifa or Imam Shafi'i. He would never say, no, was he? Alright, there are 7 types of mujtahid. Bismillah. Keep going.
1. The mujtahidun fil mujtahids in the Sharia. Mujtahidun fil madhab, mujtahids in the madhab have already been mentioned.
Say the English one, please.
Sorry?
Say the English one.
Mujtahid on particular issues are scholars who remain within the school but are competent to exercise ijtihad on certain aspects within it, which they know thoroughly. 4. Resolvers of ambiguity, who are competent to indicate which view is preferable in cases of ambiguity or regarding suitability to prevailing conditions. 5. People of assessment are those competent to make comparisons and distinguish the correct sahih and the preferred rajih and the agreed upon views from the weak ones inside the madhab. 6. People of correction, those who can distinguish between the manifest and the rare and obscure views of their following. 7. The emulators, including all non-scholars.
Which one are you guys? Huh? What number? Anybody number 1? Thank God. Anybody number 2? Sisters, any number 2s up there? Anybody number 3? Anybody number 4? Anik, number 6? No? Good. Number 7, right? That's what you and I was. No shame about that. That's what it's taken from that way. Right? Of these 7 categories, only the first 3 are considered mujtahid. Right, isn't it?
The categories can in practice be reduced to 2 as far as we are concerned.
Stay with me, I'm nearly finished. Just hang on, yeah? You guys are tired.
The follower, who follows his madhab while being aware of the Quranic and Hadith texts and the reasoning underlying its positions. The emulator, who simply conforms to the madhab because of his confidence in its scholars and without necessarily knowing the detailed reasoning behind all its thousands of rulings. Clearly, it's recommended for the muqallid to learn as much as he or she is able of the formal proofs of the madhab.
Nobody's saying you can't know the proofs for certain positions. Honestly speaking, most of you guys want to know what's haram, is it right, is it wrong? You don't necessarily need to know the proofs. Although it's within your right to ask for a proof, but most of you guys never. No one's ever asked me for a proof except for people who have problems.
But it is equally clear that not every Muslim can be a scholar. Scholarship takes a lot of time, and for the Ummah to function properly, most people must have other employment, as accountants, soldiers, butchers, and so forth.
I missed out dentists and doctors and dentists. Those who are non-dentists and doctors appreciate that. Alright? Keep going.
The Quran itself states that less well-informed believers should have recourse to qualified experts. According to the tafsir experts, The people of remembrance are the ulama scholars.
دليل for following the method. That's my delil. That's my proof following the method. So ask the people of remembrance if you do not know. I don't know. Allah told me to ask those who do know. Let's go to the Hanafi. Let's go to the Shafi. Let's go to the Maliki. That's my proof. فاسأل أهل الذكر إن كنتم لا تعلمون. That's my proof from the Quran. I don't know. But these people know. I'm going to ask them. Simple. Anything else? Apart from history. Okay, but if you want something else, that.
Muslims are enjoined to create and maintain a group of specialists who provide authoritative guidance for non-specialists.
The Quran tells us we have to have specialists. With the verse of Quran, Bismillah.
A man from each community should stay behind to gain instruction in religion and to warn the people when they return to them, so that they may take it.
So there the Quran is saying, not only do we who don't know have to ask those who do know, who are the imams of the schools, because they know. And there's nothing wrong with me not knowing. The Quran doesn't say, if you don't know, go and seek the answer from the Quran and the Sunnah itself. Pay attention. The Quran does not say, go and seek the answer yourself. Go to the Quran and the Sunnah yourself. Go and ask the people of knowledge. Simple. And then it says in the Quran, there has to be a band, a group of people who are specialists of knowledge, who you can go and ask. Right? That's how society works. Bismillah. There we go. Nearly finished.
Given the depth of scholarship needed to understand the revealed text accurately and the extreme warnings we have been given against distorting the revelation, it is obvious that ordinary Muslims are duty-bound to follow the expert opinion, rather than rely on their own reasoning and limited knowledge, or of those who claim to be knowledgeable. So please follow a madhab and only seek knowledge from sheikhs, imams, that they themselves follow a madhab.
That's my point. Now, those who are Sunni, that's what we will do. If you're doing something else, stop doing that. Unless you want to do what you want to do what you want to do. I'm not here to kind of really convince you, I'm just passing it on. You gotta listen, or don't listen. No skin on my back. But don't come and argue with me if I'm got time for that.
Those that do not should be avoided, as they are not representative of the majority of the ummah.
Yeah, that's kind of proven that over 2 lectures. That representative of Ummah in the Sunni tradition. Alright, somebody, listen to that. Keep going. We have a Q&A at the end of this. For those who want to.
The word madhab is derived from an Arabic word meaning to go or to take as a way. Refers to the mujtahid's choice in regard to a number of interpretive possibilities in deriving the rule of Allah from the primary text of the Quran and Hadith on a particular question. In a larger sense, a madhab represents the entire school of thought of a particular mujtahid imam, such as Abu Hanifa, Malik, Shafi, or Ahmed, together with many first-rank scholars that came after each of these in their respective schools, who checked their evidences and refined and upgraded their work.
That's very important. We check their what? And?
Refine and upgrade.
Yes. What's your name?
Haydar.
Haydar. I put that in red on purpose. Alright? So you understand that. There is safety beyond safety in following the schools. You are safe. Class. You don't have to worry about anything.
The mujtahid imams were thus explainers, who operationalize the Quran and Sunnah in the specific Sharia rulings in our lives that are collectively known as fiqh or jurisprudence. Sophisticated techniques for avoiding innovation without.
That's a madhab in the Sunni tradition, protection for falling into innovation. Which means in the Sunni tradition, if you don't follow madhab, you're going to fall into innovation. Every single person that I've known who doesn't do this has fallen into innovation. Whether they believe it or not, history says otherwise. Alright, now we can answer one of our questions. Question 1.
How has Islam, the Sharia, been understood, preserved, and transmitted by the vast majority of scholars for the vast majority of our history?
And the answer is?
The vast majority of Sunni scholars for the vast majority of our history have followed one of the 4 madhabs: Hanafi, Maliki, Shafi'i, Hanbali.
طيب So next lecture, very brief biography. We will start at Khan al-Iman. We're going to end in the dua and then open for Q&A. Keep the live stream rolling, necessarily assessing dodgy, make sure I got it. Inshallah. But now the Q&A. Those who want to leave, you can do it quietly. Those who want to remain behind, you can. And at the end of the Q&A, we will pray our treasure. If you're going to leave quietly and quickly.
I have a question for Sheikh.
Okay, just LJU. We're going to put a QR code. So you can, uni off, how many slides are going to be for students? Jubair?
Yeah.
Where's Jubair? Go.
Comment.
Yeah.
Are you feeling okay when you ask that question? Huh? Are you feeling okay when you ask that question? Yeah. Oh, it's just because I had a conversation with friends. That's what you get. One of them, I didn't know it was a thingy to actually speak out against rulers. I didn't know that. I heard that and I was interested. So I speak of personal experience. Speaking out against rulers. No, I wasn't. I was just interested. Like, genuinely. Might have like 3 verses. Might have to have 3 verses. What would the... No, it's not this country, mate. This is Libya. Is it Libyan then? No, it isn't. But I mean, Libya is a country that you get I was speaking about that. I wanted to know. I was interested. And then, yeah. I don't even need a picture of this. I live with the guy who put it up. So, no comment. Huh? No comment. No comment is no. No comment, why are you taking it? Oh, yeah. What time did you 8:30. That's a few questions.
Bismillah. Those who want to ask questions, sit down. Bismillah. First question, hands up. Bear in mind the live stream is still going, so people can sit down. Bismillah. Abbas.
So, what did the Nagata come about by each individual creating themselves to be mujtahid and then codifying themselves by the actual process of establishing these done by later imams of their students?
Both. Both of those came into place before schools. Once these imams, we'll talk about next week, their biographies, once it was known who they were, Allah kind of revealed them. People flocked to them, and other people had taqwa, and when they thought these people were phenomenal, they gave them a platform, and they became hands down these imams. Just as we had those Sahaba at the time, they were the ones who people asked questions to, and nobody else. Even the rulers at that time, they actually forbade any of the people giving fatwas other than these particular imams. They recognized at that time the state was kind of on the side of religion. So they kind of stopped people who were knowledgeable, that these are the only people who give fatwa, and anybody else other than these people will be imprisoned. Because these are knowledgeable people. So the state actually helped in that. It didn't need much because it had taqwa anyway. Yeah, but his student didn't. His student was God of Allah. What does that mean? The student was God of Allah. The judge of all judges. How do you be a judge? You're employed by the state. The idea that all the scholars were against the state all the time is wrong. Those who were against were few about it, and they stood when it was wrong. But a lot of scholars who, and it's not a bad thing. They actually worked within the state. Nothing wrong. But when things were wrong, they said it was wrong. You see, this idea that scholars can only work with the state because they're compromised is wrong. That's ridiculous. Not even true. Some are, but all aren't. And those who aren't, nobody ever hears about them. So they're really there. Next question. Zane.
Sir, I have two questions and
Copy, sir.
one confusion. My confusion is that
Just one confusion.
yeah, this one.
Alhamdulillah. I can deal with that.
The confusion is regarding the timeline which we just saw about the era of all four imams and the formulation of the books of hadith like Sahih Bukhari, Muslim, etc. We saw that you can say that the authors of those books like Imam Bukhari, Imam Muslim came after the era of like in the end of the era of four imams. So why formulating the school of fiqh for each school? How did the imams like Imam Abu Hanifa manage to get the hadith? Like did he just get it from the Sahaba, or did he also try to formulate into a form of book?
The hadith existed. The hadith existed. Bukhari, Ibn Majah, Nasai, and Tirmidhi, and so on and so forth. They just collected them. And they collect them according to a particular standard. Bukhari had a very particular standard in which he took hadith. Imam Muslim had a standard of taking a particular hadith. The Imams themselves, before, they had a standard of which hadith they would take and which hadith they didn't take. You see, so they knew hadith. Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, mashallah alayhi, if you read the articles I'll give you next week, he was saying for somebody to be a faqih, they'd have to have memorized like a million, thousand hadith, which would be really hard like that. So, the Imams knew the hadith, right? All the Bukhari and Muslim just systemized it. Those hadiths were known before. And those that weren't, the followers of the school that took them into consideration, those hadith that the Imam didn't have, as I mentioned in the slide, they actually absorbed those hadith and tweaked their schools. Inshallah, hope that kind of answers. Anything from the sisters? Bismillah.
What would your advice be, for example, like for convert in which method to follow?
Follow. I want to answer. The convert will answer that. Yeah, asking me, ask her. What was your advice? What have you done?
Well, to be fair, I didn't follow him when I first did.
Yes, we know. Now.
I just followed this.
Right, so you follow the nearest scholar to you who was teaching that. That's what he did, which is here Sheikh Harun in the micromadrasa. He's teaching fiqh. That's it. So just follow the scholar who is well versed in the school. The problem is that finding which one, someone who's versed in the method. Here in Liverpool, the only ones that I can really vouch for, in terms of the women, are you from Liverpool? It's that Najiba, you know her? Najiba Hayat. She'll tell you. In terms of women, she's the one you go to. She washes faqih. Okay. And Aywa, next question in the back. Zohair.
At the start, you mentioned the Risala of, I think it was Imam Shafi'i.
It's a book of Usul.
No.
Very hard book, by the way. It's not easy.
That was the question. The question was, do you recommend people to read stuff like this because you said you can read it, but what about the fear of misinterpretation? What about the fear of misinterpretation of the book?
I will next week's lecture, I will give you several things to read. Articles and things that I've taken for this lecture. I've taken things from certain books and certain sources. These two lectures are the hardest and heaviest lectures. Other lectures will be a lot more simpler, a lot less weightier, but very, very important lectures nonetheless. This has a lot of information in it. It's probably new for most of you. But the thing I recommend at the end of next week will be everything that you can put you in good stead, in a good position to know what to read, and you won't be misinterpret. If you do misinterpret, you can always come back to me and ask me.
I have a question about certain practices where those that follow a certain school of thought, they pray salah at a certain time.
Like Asr. The Hanafis pray Asr. It's recommended that they delay Asr until the shadow is double and a bit more. That's it. The Shafi'i pray Asr a bit earlier because the hadith for them. As soon as Asr comes in, it's shadow, the length of the object shadow is a little bit. Hanifis think it's going to be double the length. That's where it comes from.
What's the reason for that?
You have to ask Hanafi for that. But they have reasons. But you know what? Know that they have reasons, and those reasons are valid, and those reasons have been accepted by hundreds of scholars, or thousands of scholars for about 1,000 years. And both are valid.
So when you said that, like, for example, Imam Bukhari, he like traveled to other places in order to get certain hadith. So the students of Imams, they still travel to those same places, or still give that benefit.
More likely, yeah, more likely, because these were ongoing, a work in progress. The schools and the religion were a work in progress for several centuries. It was then. Actually, brother back. You have Abdo?
So the difference between a qadi is
Judge.
that a judge is that he doesn't, it's not a madhab in his own right, like a mujtahid, but he just looks into the different madhab and takes a ruling from them.
Arguably, yes. So a judge is a judge, like a judge in the Old Bailey or whatever, for example. He studied law, he knows the law, and he just gives he judges on certain things. That's what I do. So, Imam Hanifa's main students was called the Qadi al-Qullah, the judge of all the jurists, which is a state appointed position. Yeah. There's only four men. Historically, there were other madhabs, there were other mujtahids. When their schools died out, they didn't have a large following. Only four schools, these four, and their followers existed and made the schools. All the schools became extinct. In the article that I'm going to give you next week, you can read a bit more about that. Allah's wisdom made these four continue. For him,
You spoke about, the other times. As a Hanafi, I usually, pray a bit later. But say I come to Liverpool.
Is that for your hand here? Because
well, it's whatever all the Mosque time people say. When I come to Liverpool, well, would I, like, say at a mosque where they might, a different method, where they might, do the.
what does Sheikh say about this?
All I actually remember is that we have to do it. He said it's better to do that.
So you pray at the beginning of the time?
Yeah, so it's okay.
If I remember correctly, I think Abu Yusuf at the earlier time.
The beauty of the madhab is the difference. Even Sahih al-Maghrib Isha, the Isha time, the Sahibain have the opinion that Isha is the same as Shafi'is. It's the Sunnah. Beauty of the madhabs. Listen.
You
I've asked you a couple of times. Anybody who I haven't asked, who wants to ask a question, hasn't really had the opportunity. Abu Bakr.
From the list of the 7 Mujahideen.
Whoa, bro. Are we still live streaming this? Seven Mujahideen. I've been saying this for exactly this. Hey, everyone. What's that? Your name's Abu Bakr, yeah? What course is it again? LJMU, yeah? Okay, toxic, yeah.
So from the Mujtahid,
أيوة.
a muqallid was at the bottom. So is it a muqallid was the 7th one?
أيوة.
So is a muqallid mujtahid?
لا.
Yeah.
لا.
لا.
إذا مقالد مجتهد, tell me.
That's why I was confused.
Muhammad, back.
No, it's not.
No, it's not just you.
Because it was.
Let's see you. Zane. What's a muqallid first?
Copy.
Huh? Someone who follows, huh? طيب. Is a muqallid مجتهد? What's a mujtahid?
Someone who's qualified to make their own decision.
And if he is qualified to do that, he can't follow. He's a method himself.
He is.
Is a muqallid the same as a mujtahid? It's the opposite. We are muqallid. We're not scholars. It's myself. I'm going to follow the Imam. واضح? طيب بسم الله.
Why?
Another question?
It's because I got confused because it said Mujahid at the top and then.
Easy, man, easy. And then you Mujahid stuff. Mujtahid.
I'm Mujtahid.
Yeah, you sacked. It's been live streamed as well, like 500 people will be watching it. Aywa, go on, what were you saying?
Oh,
that word?
Yeah, that word.
Aywa.
Mujtahidun.
Aywa.
That's one. Because it said at the top, I got confused because it was.
Yeah, but it's aywa, I get it.
It's different, so it's the.
Yeah, it's different.
Why, like, what is the reason why it's not permitted? Like, what is the reasoning for them not to follow a madhab?
The reason is that they're ulama.
But is it?
Why would you, if you've reached that high level, why you're not alim, khalas, you don't follow any.
But wasn't there some of the Sahaba that would follow the other?
That's different. They have their opinion, but out of taqwa, because Abu Bakr and Umar, khalas, they both knowledgeable. One say, khalas, bismillah, tafadhal, you do. But if one wasn't there, then one bismillah, both ready. The difference between both being ready and one saying tafadhal, that's the muhabba, that's the tolerance, that's the love and respect they have for each other when they do that. The real scholars, that's what they do. Unlike nowadays, each one's competing, each one's arguing, each one wants the most likes on his TikTok or Instagram or whatever. And the real ulama, that's something I missed in the lecture, the tolerance and the fear of Allah. Not when you give opinions. What you are saying is that this is what Allah and His Messenger, this is what they're saying. You mess up on that, bro, you're going to hell. That's what that means. That's why the scholars wouldn't really kind of like I have no problem saying to you, Allah, I can say all day, all night, I don't know. I'm not going to risk my akhirah and answer questions that, because of my ego. Many will do that. Many will say, I don't know. Imam Malik was asked 40 questions. Imam Malik, who had all these conditions, Imam Malik had them. Right? And someone came, traveled a long way to ask Imam Malik questions. 40 questions. I think about 37 or something. He's like, La adri, I don't know. 80% of the questions you ask, I don't know. And the person said, what am I going to say to the people? I've come all the way over there, to all the way here, to ask you all these questions, and you said, La adri. What am I going to say to the people about the famous Malik? Tell them, La adri. Fear Allah, taqwa. I put up last on the list for mujtahids. For mujtahids, it's one of the last way. Arguably, it's not the first. Fear Allah.
Do you know, like you said that some scholars, or like there was a group of people, a very small group of people that didn't choose to follow a madhab. Yeah.
When we do week after next,
are we going to talk about them?
No, we're going to come to. And there's different sects of Islam. See, in the audience today, there's different people, different sects. I get that. That's why I kept on mentioning Sunni Islam. But those who claim to be Sunni and don't follow these four schools, you have to question why aren't you?
Yeah,
history is against you.
Are we going to talk about them, people who didn't choose the madhabs?
Second semester.
And do we talk about what approach they used to get their rulings from then? Because if they're not using Usul al-Fiqh.
Oh. Innovation. Bid'ah. Like I said, a madhab protects you from bid'ah. When you don't follow madhab, you're going to fall into innovation. Ask the guys who are in prison for terrorist offences that I know of, all of them, every single one. I've said it before. I'll say it again. Every single one of them, without exception, every single one doesn't follow madhab. They are poster child to following madhabs. Literally, they are poster child. The best advertisements following the madhab are those guys in prison. The sad thing is you have people walking on campus who don't do it. You read into that what you want to read into. Anyway.
Is there anybody who's studied more than one madhab?
Right, so it gets a bit tricky. Me personally, I'm not intelligent enough to do that. Some people do. So I know there's a friend of mine called Sheikh Jamil in Glasgow, and he did all 4 madhabs on one marriage. Alright, so he said the fifth of marriage in all 4 madhabs. Quite difficult, but he kind of did it because he's an expert in marriage. The guy always tells you to go back to his course, the premarital course, before you say I do. That's his course. But he kind of studied all 4 schools in marriage to get understanding. For me, it's too confusing. I can't do that. One school's enough. Trying to remember all the rules in the Shafi'i school and one particular thing is enough of a headache for me. But yeah, in certain chapters, certain people can do that. We don't have to. He did it because it's part of his job. He's a professional marriage advisor and a scholar that focuses on marriage. Inshallah.
So there has already been quite a confusion between Mujtahid and the other word.
Muqallid.
No.
Let's not go there again.
And what I'm asking about is who is a Mujaddid? Because I have heard about this thing.
Mujaddid,
Yeah.
And Mujaddid.
We've gone through the 500 years from the timeline, but haven't seen a Mujaddid in the.
We have. I'm a Shafi'i.
It was in Mujaddid.
Imam Ghazali. Two. Harun Rashid is the third.
Sir, what's the definition of Mujaddid?
And Mujaddid is somebody who in every 100 years, the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, there will come a person at the end of every 100 years who will renew the faith. He won't bring anything new. Mujaddid. No, renew it. Yahyi. When the Ummah declined, this Imam will bring back the Sunnah and revive the Sunnah, revive the Prophet's way, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Imam Ghazali, one of the greatest ones. Imam Ghazali. Imam Aziz, Imam Shafi'i, this kind of say he was one as well. Inshallah. Imam Suyuti, they say he was one. Imam Suyuti, who I mentioned today. Kathir. Abdurrahman.
Following from that question, who's the Mujaddid of our time?
Wallahu alam. Wallahu alam. Every sect, group, movement will say their Sheikh.
There was one Sheikh from what was his name from in India, where a lot of people call him the Mujaddid. His name was forgotten.
See, in this age, Wallahu alam, I can't
about 100 years ago.
Qadir Jilani.
Next question.
Oh, I was gonna say where would could you give an example of maybe where 2 madhabs have the same fiqh about something it's
the same what?
The same fiqh about something
Yeah, vast majority, 80% of the schools agree on the thing. Just 20% they differ. If you think about it, the Quran the Prophet did things different ways, and certain people saw things at different times, and certain hadith, when they reached the Imams, for example, there's a criteria. Certain hadith, the criteria was met. They took hadith. Certain Imams had a different criteria. Perhaps the hadith was met their criteria. So that's how. So the scholars, but overall, you have to pray 5 times a day. You have to fast Ramadan. You have to do zakah. I'm Shafi'i. He's Hanafi. We do, these things are minor. Where you put your hands. You say Ameen out loud. Your zakah. Certain things are a bit more bigger than that. Overall, the similarities are 80%. Massive overlap. But if you're asking for similarities, it's too many. Asking for differences, I can give you, but which one are you asking? Similarities or differences?
I wanted similarity.
Too many. Way too many. Way too many. It's easy. An easier question is differences. That's easier. Less. I don't. Not really.
They say that I understand that there was a lot of
I understand. I said that in the slides.
So because of those different sets of focus. So could you argue that influenced this strict criteria which hadith would accept?
Yes. Yeah. If there's 4, you just flying around. Abu Hanifa is a man of God. Prayed Isha. Prayed Fajr. Wudu Isha 40 years. Fajr. With the wudu Isha 40 years. It's a man of Allah. I'm a Shafi'i. I recognize him actually. It's a man of God. So, yeah.
So then when the hadith science was more revised.
أيوة. Then
it's strict.
the scholars after يعني absorb the hadith. Yeah, of course. Throughout all of this, you see the hand of God metaphorically, the hand of Allah, the preservation. That theme should be in the back of your head. This deen is preserved. Any other deen would not have this kind of like protection. Bring the value protect Allah. Just amazing. It should increase your iman. Not this topic. It should increase your iman. Like Allah has preserved this deen through these great ulama. It's ajib how these 4 imams and nobody's managed to reach the level. They say Imam Mahdi at the end of time he'll be mujtahid. It was at the time. Imam Mahdi because he'll be mujtahid. And scholars, some scholars will have a hard time with him. Because he's no more Hanafi, no more Maliki, no more Shafi'i, no more Hanbali. Imam Mahdi. There is his ijtihad. He's mujtahid.
What's can you give him like an explanation of what Sufism is?
We're coming to that towards the end. That's coming up. It's all coming up that topic and in detail. 2 lectures on that. Abdo
I remember, Sheikh, that you mentioned during the first lecture that
you still remember the first lecture. These guys can't even remember tonight's lecture.
during the Q&A session, you touched upon the topic of khuruj.
خوارج.
No, khuruj على الحاكم.
أيوة. Go on. As you're being live streamed.
Imam Nawawi, you said Imam Nawawi rahimahullah, he gathers in his book that there's an ijma' by the scholars. But certain people, they say that...
First of all, is this an issue of fiqh or aqeedah? Halal or haram?
Is it...
Wait, answer. I hope you answer the question yourself. Is it an issue of halal or haram?
It's fiqh.
Fiqh. So we go to the 4 madhabs. Right. Now this issue of al-khuruj al-hakim, rebelling against the leader, issue of fiqh, we go to the madhab. What's the position of the schools of thought? If a person is a leader, a Muslim leader, we don't go and stay. Even if they're corrupt, even if they're kind of like Hajjaj ibn Yusuf, those of you know that is, we still stay. Because the alternative is chaos. Look at the Arab Spring, look at the problems that has come, look at Yemen, look at Syria, look at Iraq, look at everything else that madness went. The scholars will ask, people ask the scholars, why didn't you say anything about this topic? And the scholars said, you guys don't ask us. You only come to us when it's fitna. If your media outlets came, we'd tell people haram to rebel against the hakim. Yeah? Oh no, revolution. Let's take down this leader or that leader. Alright, well, how's it going with his ancestors in Syria doing now in Liverpool? We're never going to go back. How's it look with people in Yemen, where I'm from? How's it look in Libya? How's it look? Don't look too good, you see. And now if you ask them, those who are truthful, say, you know what? It was bad, but had we stayed there, it would be better. At least we had a country, at least there was some stability, at least women's dignity was honoured. At least we were still in our country. Look at it now. What we have left in the Ahkam Sharia. No matter how bad it is, we have some. And the real ulama, Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, the leaders in those particular countries, the scholars spoke to them privately to listen. This stuff's kicking off everywhere else. You've got to change 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But things happen, other imams, other people start to make khutbahs, and they're sat in their palaces in Qatar, yeah, and telling people in Syria, get up and fight. And they're sat in their palaces in Qatar. And their children in the West, good educations, but they're telling them, well, yeah, go. The leaders at Nahd in Syria, the scholars were pushed aside. No one to listen to, because he's dealing with an open rebellion in his country. I'm not saying what he's done, what he's doing is correct, it's wrong. I'm saying the scholars didn't want to go that far, and they tried to advise, but Sheikh Fulan, in a nice palace in Qatar, was something else. Before we get to anybody else, play Bismillah.
I have a question on
We'll deal with that in the future. Inshallah. If someone, the answer's on the board, tell that person to go look at my lecture. Ask that person should have been here. He was here. Tell him to look at the slides. The answer's on the board there. And sometimes things are very open and obvious. Sometimes you have to spell everything out for you. It's obvious. Anybody who follows one of the four madhabs, alhamdulillah. People who don't follow the madhabs, we don't follow them. Last thing I promised. It's in the slides. Go back and look at the slides.
For today, the slides.
Yeah. People who noticed it. My man here noticed it, didn't you? Aywa.
So, like, you know, we do this as a and the one you do they follow a particular method?
Azhar University, they're predominantly Shafi'i, but they've been teaching the four madhabs for centuries. Full stop. The ones in India are going to be Hanafi. Full stop. Next question. Anything for yourself? No? Huh? Okay. Right, those slides will be up, inshallah. We'll get them for you, inshallah. We'll finish it out. Next week I'm going to go over, I'll give you some biographies of 40 imams, which will be useful.